The pump used to be in that.
Okay.
Originally,
Bless your heart.
then they moved to put the new
Same
well
time while
up
everything was
there where the
frozen.
building still stayed there.
Yeah, that was a nasty.
Lynn wanted it
So I was
gone.
going back.
So
Oh
we
my
moved
gosh.
it,
Crazy.
took it apart.
Just so
The
you
pump
guys-
used to be in that.
Okay.
Originally,
Bless your heart.
then they moved to put the new
Same
well
time while everything
up
was
there where the
frozen.
building still stayed
Yeah,
there.
that was a nasty.
Lynn wanted it
So I was
gone.
going back.
So
Oh
we
my
moved
gosh.
it,
Crazy.
took it apart.
Just so you
Pump
guys-
used to be in that.
Okay.
Originally,
Bless your heart.
then they moved to put the new
Same
well
time while everything
up
was
there where the
frozen.
building still stayed there.
Yeah, that was a nasty.
Lynn wanted it
So I was
gone.
going back.
So
Oh
we
my
moved
gosh.
it, took it apart.
Just so you
Pump used to be in that. Originally, then they moved to put the new well up there where the building still stayed there.
Yeah, that was a nasty.
Lynn wanted it
So I was
gone.
going back.
So we moved it, took it apart.
Mine says it's connected.
There might be a few people that can't get a hold of me. It's not hard.
It's working.
I think we're good now.
You got that? Do you see
Live.
it? What did you put in? C1, TY?
All right, everything's live.
Yeah.
Call the meeting to order
Yes.
of the Calvert City Board of Utilities. First order of business would be the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. From the December meeting.
Motion to approve.
Okay, have a motion from Barry to approve. Second from Steve. All in favor, say aye. All opposed by like sign. The quick review of the finances. The cash position is a little bit lower than it was a year ago.
Both of those say 22, so the
Top
top one
one
Is
is
the
22.
for the bottom is 21.
Sorry,
Bottom
I
is
did that
21.
another time. I just get to write.
I was just wondering. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Dan's right, yes.
I was trying not to embarrass her.
I know.
You didn't have to admit to anything. You could have said it was an underling.
But we've had some expenditures in the maintenance area and all that have come out of the cash flow.
Yeah, we've got
Some of
large
that will
expenses.
be reimbursed too, I believe, possibly.
Mhm.
Yeah,
What was
so
the prom? I saw that.
the Crom, that was
That-
when they did the water tank, right?
Yeah, when they repaired the,
Well, that check just.
That
The
would be a
tank painted
capital item if it's not, so, yeah. Okay. On the water and sewer budgets, both of them, the revenue is slightly greater than what we budgeted for that same period. And the expenses are slightly lower than what we budgeted, so we're running with a positive over budget for the same period of time in both of those areas. Just a little bit of a warning ahead of time, we were looking at the utilities today, and the electric bills will be up this month that they paid because of the rain and Tim and I was talking about the lift stations running wide open. And so it jumps the power up quite considerably in the sewer area. The water, I think, will be about the same as it's been running on an average. So
yeah, this next month will probably be higher on the water. Because it will have the billing of the cold snap in it on the water.
he was telling me that which I hadn't ever given any thought, that the lift stations, when it's raining and all of them are running wide open and pumping to doing their job. but that end result of that is a higher fire bill as that goes on. So we've had quite a bit of rain lately, so. Okay, next item on the agenda. We had invited Chad to join us for talk about the grants and what's on the pad and how that works a little bit and all. So Chad, I'll let you talk to us about that.
Right. I want this to be a information sharing session here, so if you guys got any questions, feel free to stop me in the middle and ask. Well, I'm gonna start out with just an update of the current projects that we're currently working on with the city, as far as the projects that have been awarded grants, where we're at those processes, and then we can move to the list that you have from there. The last time I was here, a couple meetings ago, we started to get into the list. I think you actually pulled it up on your phone and started looking at some of these projects. So we can look at these in detail if you'd like to, or if you'd like to just use that to digest. A lot of that will become a city decision, a board decision on whether or not to keep some of these projects on the list moving forward and then prioritize some of the others. So I'll start out with the ones we currently have and are working on. I'll skip over the wastewater treatment plant for the moment, go right into the PB Cloud project. PB Cloud Road project, we have worked through the process with the grant applications and the grant assistance agreements with KIA. We actually got 3 of those working together kind of simultaneously right now. PB Cloud, the Old Gilbertsville Highway project, and the water treatment plant VFD and control improvement. Are in the application stage with KIA. We're at the point now where we're submitting the e-clearinghouse submittals. So that's what they call the initial environmental clearance step for these projects. And as soon as that box is checked at that end, then they will formally execute and send that grant assistance agreement to the city for final execution. And then that will give the city access to those grant monies for reimbursements through their reimbursement period. Once the city will submit a request, we can submit that request for you all on those based on receipts.
Okay, and I see those, like 2 of those on here, like whichever sheet it is, it's on the back one. I see PB Cloud, I see Old Gilbertsville. What was the third one?
It was a water treatment plant, we call it VFD and control improvements.
Yeah,
That's
you
one
know where that
that's,
one is?
That was for $300,379.
That's good.
That'd be just 2 more down there on that same sheet.
Then on the second, third page.
Animal frequency,
Yes. sir.
drives and control,
Yeah.
okay,
That's correct.
$300,379, okay.
Yep.
Thank you, continue on.
Okay. As far as the PB Cloud Road project, that's the one that we have been actively working on some to date. Actually done some field reviews with Tim, done some property recon out there and resurrected some of the plans that were done by Florence and Hutchison back around 10 or so years ago. When we pulled those plans up, looked at the project, talked with some folks associated with the project. Doesn't sound like there was any record of easements being secured at that time. And some of the project as it was originally designed is no longer viable. So we're looking at alternatives primarily on the north end of the job to relocate or redo that design alignment for sure on that end to get back to a suitable time location, something to be maintainable with folks in the water system moving forward. And the really last step, the next step where we're in the process is coordinating with Tim. We need to do a field review out there. And really, it's at this point, it's picking the side of the road that we feel is most beneficial. The original design had it on the west side of the road. In our field reviews initially, we've really been leaning towards the east side of the road. So we'll look at that again, a couple constructability locations, avenues there, just to make sure we're all in agreement before we initialize our survey.
Remind me what easements mean.
Easements, that's a permanent utility easement, just it's
Allows
made
you to-
directly with the property owners, gives you access to
Uh-huh.
install the line and maintain
Okay.
it for perpetuity.
And what happens when, like you say, you could have worked before, but we didn't get them? Well, do you run into what new construction there that makes it unrealistic or?
Well, that's what happened on the north end. One of the property owners actually built a garage building
Yeah,
about 2 foot off of where the alignment was going through.
right,
And
right.
that in combination with some of the grade, there's a really steep grade.
Okay.
going off the back of that road,
Okay.
going down. and Old Cow Road over there, and it's just, it's tough.
Got it.
Could be done, but
I understand.
once it's in there, it's just gonna be one of those things that we're gonna get asked in the future. Tim may be retired, but 15 years from now, somebody, why in the world did you put the line there? So just trying to iron out those details
Right,
before we get too far.
Thank you.
into it. The old Gearwoodville Highway job, of course, that project has been completed, but it has been awarded grant funding. So we're working through that process, gathering the information, the receipts and invoices that were paid for that project to make sure that all the proper documentation is submitted to KIA so they can check their boxes and get that grant money as a reimbursement
great.
to the city.
This is what was mentioned in the paper about in the late.
Yes.
June
Mhm.
front.
Yes.
So that was federal money. It's like it's funded to the state, it's the state pass through. Is that not
Correct. Yeah, all originated at federal level and passed to the state allocation and award to the project.
Yeah,
Is
there's,
there any COVID money or anything tied to it?
Indirectly, I think all this is probably.
During all that
associated
money
with-
they were throwing out for infrastructure at that time.
yeah, there was supposed to have been a meeting in Marshall County with,
And it was, and that's.
with the
that's what-
lieutenant governor to pass out at least part of that money, or
They had, I think they, well, I know they had a meeting in Paducah at one time. The governor came in. He was talking about the monies and allocations, and things like that. There was one you're talking about. Probably so.
no, the one I was talking about was just recently, and the day it stormed and rained, and they canceled it because they couldn't fly out of Frankfurt. Yeah,
I think it was last week.
last
Because-
week when it,
Mayor Coburn was gonna go. It was the lieutenant governor. It was a ceremonial.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So this one's reimbursable because, I mean, was it because it met a certain standard? Or we pursued the project before we had the grant?
Correct. Pursued funding before you had the grant on the old Gearwoodville Highway job. And subsequent to the city doing the project, they were awarded, the city was awarded the opportunity to accept the grant monies.
Okay.
The other two projects, the water treatment plant variable frequency drive, that project, and the
Phase
in the Gearwoodville Highway, that all was filtered through the fiscal court. The way that kind of rounded out, so the $1.9 million and some change came to Marshall County Fiscal Court,
Uh-huh.
is what they call Cleaner Water Program Round 2. And that those monies were broken up 4 ways. And Calvert City was a recipient of 25% of that 1.9 million, and that $480,779 was split between those two projects.
Right.
The PB Cloud project, that was a separate, it was a cleaner water grant project, but it was separate from the county money.
Right.
That came through. And that was awarded based on what they call it was COVID, but it was also based on dollars that were earmarked for serving currently unserved residents. In there, they earmarked, I think it's $49 million throughout the state for serving unserved.
Water,
residents
sewer
With water,
with water.
yes.
there's about 11, potentially 11 customers on PB Cloud Road that don't have water now. So,
and it'll open up more avenues for expansion down the road if somebody decides to subdivide some of that property up back there,
Right.
I mean, it'll open up more availability for the system.
And that PV cloud project allows the loop. and close
Right.
the loop out
Yes, it
there.
will.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so then we can stabilize water pressure.
Right.
Much easier.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. That's right. Any questions on those current projects?
The only question I had on that one, on the VFDs, did we ever get situated on how we're gonna pay for that? I mean, or purchase those parts and everything? That's one, Greg, we
We
talked
discussed
about.
Start.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Just split it, get it split up.
Well,
Just,
where that started, and how that process has flowed to date. Initially, whenever the city was awarded those grant monies, we really were looking at it from the standpoint of how collectively can a city get this done in an efficient manner, but also with some level of comfort that we're getting exactly what the city needs and that the process is coordinated appropriately so that we don't run into a situation where the system talk with one another, equipment, doesn't get in on time, and then we're in a situation where the city's water plant is not fully functional. It needs to be. So the question was then asked, can these dollars be used to sole source, either from a material standpoint or from a labor standpoint? And I spoke with KIA and I asked them that point of question. And they informed me that that has been done, that we're not inventing something new, that they haven't been through that process before. But however, to go through that process, the city would do it one of two ways. You can prepare your bidding documents such that you will only accept this equipment because that equipment is what will work with your current system and integrate with your current system. And you can also set it up to where the experience requirements for the contractors are such that you're eliminating a lot of the other competition because of the experience that you need to have for implementing the project. So that was one avenue to do it, through a bidding process. If you want to circumvent or bypass the bidding process, it can be done, but it's based on procurement guidelines and connected procurement code. And Greg, this is where I don't want to misspeak here, and you can speak for the city's adoption or that lack thereof of the procurement
Right.
code, because there are some variances that KA will need to be certified by the city's council if you are not going to bid the project. So if there is a reason why the city doesn't want to bid the project, then a variance letter will have to be written by the city's council. That will include an opinion as to why there's that process.
Yeah, they prefer the model procurement code.
They do. Yeah.
That's the one they work with all the time.
Mhm.
But honestly, most small communities have not adopted the model procurement code. And it's because it's too complicated for 98% of the projects we do. Model procurement code does not help. It hurts.
Right.
And so we just operate under 454, which is the 30,000. You've heard us say 1,000 times, $30,000 over 30, you bid it, under 30, you don't bid it. That's the way we and every other community of this size and actually much bigger operate. However, on these state financed and federal financed projects, they tie their language of their grants into the model procurement code. And so you've got two things that don't fit together, trying to work together, and that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They're going to want me to certify that we are operating under, that we bid or didn't bid based upon the applicable statutes rather than based upon the model procurement code.
So in this, didn't we talk about this some? We want to feel very comfortable with who you get, given the level of service you're going to need and all this kind of issues. And so we talked about breaking it up. Is that what we did to make sure that we hit under 30 or something?
Yeah, and you got to be
Just-
careful about that. You
Yeah.
can do that, but from talking to you guys,
Okay.
it actually is a multiplicity of projects. It's not really one project, it's a bunch of projects.
Right.
And we can probably justifiably and with a straight face, break it up into projects that are mostly under $30,000, and then you don't have to bid it.
Right.
Then you can go look for whatever you want.
Especially if the city's buying equipment.
Right.
So this compatibility issue, I think is critical.
Very.
State is notorious for forcing, I have all the state show you trillions of dollars for equipment shoved back in empty rooms because they're forced to buy mobile. Then or tore up, there was not replacement parts for it. I did a compatibility exception to state one time. Well, once I had a certain type of lab set up and we expanded the lab, I wanted the same setup in it, but I still had to get 2 bids, even for certain types of welder, but I was able to get 2 bids and then I took the lower with the 2 bids, but I did get the equipment. So I think that we really need to, however Greg has to capture this, is we need to make sure we don't get launches mixed up in that system.
Right.
So
If it's
Tim, what
not-
do we
if
need to
it's not
do?
compatible, I don't want
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
You really have a package for the high service pumps, and then you have another package for the booster pump station building. And they can be 2 independent projects. I think we collectively.
And they are.
A high service
They are.
needs to go first anyway.
Right.
And we need to get that system set up because we can't take the booster station down until the high service pumps are fully functional and operate with that new equipment. So it's inherently, it needs to go that way anyway.
Good.
And then talking to them about the lead time on materials. Gonna probably be a staggered project anyway, because lead times are almost a year, sounds like on some of these projects. So,
And the grant people are telling you that that if it's less than $30,000, it would be okay for us to do it without a bid, so long as they get a certification letter from me saying it was done in accordance with the applicable statutes for Calvert City. It was procured in accordance with the
Right.
statutes.
correct. That's the way I understand it.
Is it gonna be under 30? On the project you just described,
We've
is it
got-
under
We've
30?
got 2 quotes from a local contractor that we would feel comfortable doing it. And the 2 quotes we received were less than that amount.
Okay,
Now surprisingly so.
Right.
But,
Yep.
but
we'll take it.
now, and again, we can break the labor and materials up as well, which will help lower those numbers.
Well, we can, but if we don't, I'd rather not. We want to break it up into identifiable projects.
Mhm.
But when you do anything that smells like you're taking a project and breaking it up into pieces to try to beat the 30,000,
Right.
you can lose big
Yeah.
in that game.
Yeah.
So if it'll all go under 30, that's what we want to do.
Okay.
If we can't, I'd say the other avenue is
Bid it.
the bid it, but tailor the specifications as such. that
Okay.
you really eliminate the competition, so you get what you want.
Yeah.
Okay, they accept it, okay. Special cases.
Okay.
This
Good.
being one.
Well, what's the fear? I mean, all those rules are in place, so it's not your brother we're buying this from, or your brother, or my brother, right? Or, we're all getting kickbacks from whatever, and so,
That's the motivator.
yeah,
It's just an application that gets a little crazy sometimes.
sure. I mean, you guys, it's amazing what all the equipment we have and what we gotta do to make the system work.
So, are we ready, since you're saying the parts are a year away, are we ready to start the process of actually
As soon
ordering
as-
these?
Well, as soon as we get that
projects?
clearinghouse process completed, then that will allow the city to enter into the reimbursement agreement with the state. So right now, there's not a connection between, from a funding standpoint, between the city and the funding agency. It's started, but the connection hasn't officially been made yet to start drawing reimbursements. So that's why we're not, just to answer your question, you could.
We're not quite ready
You
for
could
that.
go ahead, but you'd be kind of front loading the project without a promise of reimbursement until that assistance agreement is executed.
But
Yeah, because we have not,
Say,
what is that process? Whose responsibility is that?
well, as soon as the clearinghouse is done, we'll submit that to KIA. The KIA will then send the grant assistance agreement to the city.
Okay.
execution. So the same process that was done with the last project for PV Cloud. So kind
Yeah,
of been
'cause
through
we
the
haven't done the
process.
resolution, brought those two before the council yet.
You have, they
No.
have gone through, well, just for the commitment letter, that has
That's all
gone through, and the resolution has been passed.
for PV Cloud, but not for the VFDs and the,
For PV Cloud, you're right. For the other ones, though,
we have not.
we did the commitment letters, and we did the budgets, and we did
Yeah.
the third.
That's where we're
exhibit.
at. We're waiting on that right now.
Gotcha.
So I will still have to take that before council.
Was our booster station original $700,000 project?
Originally,
That was what was budgeted.
we had budgeted.
So it's still
Well,
in
no,
our
I think
budget.
we had budgeted, it might have been around there. We did get a quote.
Yeah.
You Might have to refresh.
Well,
It seemed like it was originally had one amount, and that amount was reduced a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the meetings reduced the amount. didn't it?
When you say clearinghouse, is that this group?
No, the Kentucky
Clearinghouse process.
Clearinghouse, it is run out of Frankfurt.
Okay,
You make an electronic submittal of the project, and
Got
they have about 12 groups that look at it from an environmental perspective,
okay,
which the variable frequency drive project wouldn't touch any of them.
yes,
It's more or less just a checkbox. They got to go through.
right,
PV Cloud touches a few more of them,
sure,
but it's already a developed corridor, so the risk of running into some kind of archaeological or unknown
historical or,
historical conflict or any type of endangered species is very
Got
high
it.
in those areas. And
so those are the kind of groups they're gonna look at. it, right?
Because really with the VFDs, all we're doing is upgrading to a new series of what we're doing, what we've already got. Really.
Right, in the booster station.
in the booster station and then redoing.
Right,
Which is to make sure we get a split system.
right.
So it's all tied back to the split system, back to when we couldn't keep the water tank full when
Right.
we had a bad leak. So
Like-
that issue's not gone, right?
No.
We're still.
Yeah.
And I mean, like Chad was saying, with we're gonna have to do the high service pump VFDs. That's got to be done first. Because we cannot do anything to the booster station until that part's done. Because while the booster station's down, I'm gonna be running the entire system off of the high service pumps. Without the high service pumps, you're dead. You can't pump nothing. I've got to use one or the other. So I want to get the high service pumps done first. Get that part done, and then we can do the booster station. Once we get the booster station done, we'll have a complete split system. But we need to go in the steps of, in my opinion, your high service pumps has got to be done first.
We're fixing that, so we fix something next.
Right.
Yeah. And here's what's wrong with my question is time. If we budgeted money for that, do we feel comfortable and hoping that we get that funded and we don't have a reoccurrence or a bad system? Where we wind up, can't get money, water to the plant.
Right.
So I don't.
You're asking about reallocating that money that was budgeted for the booster station somewhere else, is that?
Well, I'm worried about the split system and how big, at least I interpreted that, the meeting that we had with Silas, is that was a pretty big issue. I could have misinterpreted that, but that issue still hangs out there, so that's my only thought about it.
And that is valid, and some of this will springboard into the other improvements that we've looked at going out to 95 Industrial Parkway. If we can strengthen the pipeline system, transmission system going out to Industrial Parkway, that will actually reduce the head pressure of the booster station. So the station can go back to running 2 pumps primarily and having a third pump there designated as a spare.
Right.
The problem right now is there's so much head pressure and you got so much demand out there, in industrial park, the city's forced to use all three pumps all the time. You don't have any backup in the system, so that was initially where we were going with the booster station replacement was we need to go with a 4-pump system because we're running 3 pumps all the time. So we wanted to have a 4th spare or redundant pump at all times. But then when we started talking about the developments out there, in industrial park, Parkland and some other demand going up. So this would be a good time to evaluate. And then during our evaluation, we determined to run that 2 pumps with larger pipes.
So are we comfortable in waiting? I mean, if you're gonna have long, what's the lead time on getting stuff in order?
But
So we're kind of hoping we don't have another bad leak for the next year. I mean,
Welcome to
that's
Tim's
where I'm
world.
Trying to go.
well, having a high service pumps is another thing. Tim's worked over the last year to get a VFD operational on one of the high service pumps right now.
So we've got that.
So that helps, that will help.
I had an old one and I put it back in service so I could see if I could do what I was thinking I could do.
Well, the other critical thing along with what Steve's saying, in my opinion, is getting the whole VFD system to operate the plant up to current standards in place, right, Michael? And that what we decided that what we got out there is old school
Right.
Yeah, a lot of the other existing controls are
and you can't get replacements for them.
getting obsolete. Replacement parts are practically non-existent.
So there is a little bit of a time of the essence. And that's the reason why I asked how we were gonna fund it so that we could move on. And I guess you're moving as fast as you can, so.
But it would be the board's decision if you wanted to move a little bit faster than the grant application. The money's there, the money has been allocated specifically for that project. And it's earmarked for that job. It's just a matter of going through the paperwork.
Well, I think we just need to, I think we need to stay on the paperwork, pushing it through.
Sure.
The 2 drives for the high service pumps. If I'm remembering right. They were about $28,000 a piece. Was that right?
Should have looked at that before I came.
I believe that's-
I didn't know that.
Doesn't that sound about right?
Sounds about right, but I didn't know the number.
They were like $28,000 a piece.
100 horsepower.
Right. I won't have to pay for them until they come in. I guess like what Dan was talking about, what would be wrong? I'm just asking. What would be wrong with me going ahead and getting a PO from the city to purchase those 2 VFDs, and let's get them on order. If we're looking at a year, surely all of this will be done within a year's time. Let's, try to get ahead of the ball game rather than wait. I mean, we're talking, $60,000.
Yeah, how are you gonna break that? Are we bidding that or not bidding it, or is that a certain pump that we need?
The
As
variable
opposed to
fre-
any
the variable
other-
frequency drives. I
Yeah.
mean, that would be something we would look at. We talked to
Right.
Rick's Electric about it and get their best recommendation for this Allen Bradley or this ABB drive that we want for that.
Or let's go ahead and bid, if we're going to have to bid it, let's go ahead and bid those 2 drives out and spec them, and let's get,
Would
I mean,
that
it's gonna be a
interfere
year.
with the grant? I mean,
It's
we'll-
the same
we'll-
process that we're going through with the Old Gabrielsville Highway job. So as long as we do it in accordance with their standards, then.
So that's not an exception. They didn't make that's not a legislative exception. That's just the procedure that they allow you to use. We can go ahead and buy it or make arrangements to buy it. And that's not gonna interfere with the grant process itself.
No, no, as long as you go through.
Cause I'm afraid it's-
Keep the receipt.
with the way things are going up, $60,000 worth of drives today may be 100,000
Yeah.
6
Don't
months
slow
from now.
down, it might
Yeah.
definitely be.
Well, is the situation such that whether we get the grant or not, we gotta do it?
It's gotta be done. I
And
mean,
so if we don't get the
you don't
grant-
have no option. If you're
It
gonna
doesn't
pump
really
water,
matter,
it
we
wants to
gotta
be
do it
done.
anyway.
Combine, I mean, again, with the drives, that was the other exception that Cat said. If you have a piece of equipment, and I've talked to them about before, most of the equipment we deal with in the water and sewer industry, you're dealing with regional reps. So if you need this pump, you're dealing with one supplier in the area that's gonna bid on it, because this is their service area that they take care of. Maybe something different, but I mean, we're just talking about buying a drive. I don't think we're gonna be looking at multiple brands of drives.
No.
And there's only one or two brands of drives that I think we're gonna be considered, for this type of application. The other ones
If we
that are
bid
out
it, we can
there-
spec those drives. right?
Yeah, I think it'd be one or the other. If you bid it, we're gonna accept bids from these two, and that's it.
Michael, you got any thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like we talked about before, I mean, in my opinion, we prefer to have an ABB drive like we have everywhere else.
Right.
Keeps, compatibility stays the same. You've got you don't have to train people how to operate 2 or 3 different brands of drives. They're industry standard. My experience with them has been that they're the best there are out there. I would strongly recommend the ABB drives. I have worked on Allen Bradley drives, but
Well, I just mentioned there's only another one.
yeah, and that's the only other one that I've used
For
too.
longevity and life.
That's I believe the budgetary quote that we were looking at for that 28,000-ish was an ABB.
I think so.
It was like an ACH 800 drive
I
or
think
something
you're
like
right.
that. So, but yeah, my only comments would be, I would highly recommend sticking with the flavors that we already have, the flavors that we have been proven and that we're familiar with, like, the Allen Bradley PLCs and ABB drives.
Y'all just tell me for a minute, variable frequency drives, what in the world are we talking about? Something physical, software, what are we talking about?
So it's a
Hardware,
it is a big piece of hardware
okay,
so the incoming power
okay,
is coming in over there. I guess we're using 480 volt. So it's 480 volts, 3-phase. So it's a
Okay.
little bit more than your house. But in a nutshell,
Don't hit the pedal to the metal all at once.
so and a normal motor starts up basically what you would call a cross the line starter. So when you turn on a motor, it goes to full speed instantly, and that causes a lot of inrush current. And you're only allowed to run that motor on or off full speed. So what this variable frequency drive does is the motors are designed to allow you to adjust the frequency. So you know how it's in America, it's 0 to 60 hertz, or 60 hertz is what the normal power grid is on.
Okay.
Is the normal frequency. So the motors are designed to where if you modulate that frequency less than 60, the motor slows down linear with that. So you can run that motor at 30 hertz and it'll only run at half of its top speed. So it allows you to use the VFD can be then programmed to be looking at the PLC can be looking at your pressure. And if you're wanting to maintain 100 pounds to fill the water tower, that VFD can then modulate that motor
okay.
and speed it up and ramp it down to control the pressure. So it's a way of controlling the speed of the motor, which will in turn control the pressure, discharge, and flow. So,
So it's doing it digitally though, what you're talking about in terms of, well, it's electronically too.
So all it does is it varies the frequency of the power that's going to the motor, which in turn changes the speed of the motor.
Okay,
So
I got
it
you.
gives you a much more flexible.
it's not a bad name.
And
Variable
more
frequency
efficient. I mean, it's a whole lot more efficient.
Yeah, yeah. It
Got
sounds
new
like,
air conditioner, it's doing the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Variable speed compressor.
The new
Okay.
washing machines are the
new
same.
washing
right?
machine.
They have a VFD built in them.
Okay,
Don't have a transmission in them anymore.
But it is a big physical piece of hardware that would be,
okay.
I mean, gonna be like this wide, this tall, either mount on a wall or sit on the floor. So
Okay.
it is a big physical piece of equipment. Electrical, strictly electrical.
Yeah, if it's, if this helps this process. And if it's all legal. And it doesn't put you in a bind on grants, I'm good.
Well,
Let's
then,
do it.
the biggest question is if you, I think if you stay below the 30,000 threshold, then the letter to KA says procurement is, stay under 30, and we're fine. If it's over the $30,000 threshold and we're sole sourcing it, we can also write a variance letter that says we're gonna bypass it, or we're just bid it out, sole source spec, and then that
But we-
alleviates the variance request. on that.
I'll ask you. We're not qualified for sole source. We can't sole source it. That's purely a function of model procurement code. 454 does not have a sole source provision in it.
So just take that option out.
That's an option we don't
So
have.
it's either bid or stay under 30.
Yeah.
And just go that route.
But like you said, you can, if you're only gonna buy one kind of, one kind of pump, bid it. You're not gonna hurt yourself if you're gonna buy 2022 Ford such and such, they're all the same. Right? I mean, am I right?
You're correct. I mean,
Okay.
there's different, I mean, we have to spec the model of the drive. that we want. There's
Yeah.
different models of drives, or some are rated for water and wastewater applications.
Gotcha.
So we will get into that a
Right.
little bit, make sure we
Right.
spec the right model.
So we'd rather not bid it because it's just a delay. It's a pain in the rear. However, it's not a big pain.
No.
And so we'll just do it.
7 to 21 days is.
Yeah.
The model code there on
Right.
that, so as long as we do it for at least 7 days.
Do we need 3 bidders?
You don't have to.
2?
You don't
only
have to, no,
two.
Oh.
you don't have to have any.
Oh,
As long as you advertise it appropriately in the paper of the greatest circulation in the area, then you can check that box.
Alright.
And
we have
take the bid and go.
No, we don't.
I think we need to do it.
Run it, be sure you get Gene's signature on it for to cover your rear.
Sure.
Get Gene to say, yeah, do it. But are we right? Is it gonna be you guys' recommendation that let's go ahead and get after it?
Kim, are you good with it?
Yes,
You think this is a strategic thing to do? Yeah.
because I mean, just like I said, you're talking $60,000 today. 6 months, it may be $100,000.
Yeah, inflation and stuff.
I mean, because
It's
they
another
are,
aspect of it, I agree.
I mean, Michael can tell you, they are, it's changing so fast.
Yes.
And
I
I mean,
would
it's gotta be
suggest that-
done.
Yeah, I would suggest that we get a motion and a second to recommend to the mayor that we
Yeah, this
Sounds
helps
good.
you with
Yeah,
Gene.
it covers everybody.
put a bid for the variable frequency drives,
I'll make
For the
one
high
move.
service pumps.
our service pumps.
Right.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Did you catch what he said to him?
I've written quite a bit.
Okay,
Yeah, if you said bid, not necessarily bid, just the process.
Right.
That we begin the process of
Right.
of acquisition,
Right.
whatever that happens to be.
Get your order, however you wanna work it out, we'll get it down right.
I'll second.
Michael second. So all in favor, say aye.
Uh,
Opposed? Okay.
No, good.
yeah.
All right.
It is good.
Yeah.
Got everybody together to figure these things out.
All right, moving on. Chad?
Yeah, I said I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. We talked a little bit about the transmission improvements going out there to the industrial. Design for sewer improvements over there. So BFW engineering firm is working on small lift station design and force main design that will tie into the city's Riverport force main over there. To the property over there near Charlotte. That will be coming sooner than later, all that. And there'll be some reviews and things that Tim and I will be talking about, just to make sure they're utilizing the corridors that we've already looked at, that we feel like it's the best, making sure they're tying locations where we feel like it's best served for the city's infrastructure.
Okay, as we come up with projects, Jed.
Yep.
That we need in the sewer or water plant, how do we get on the,
How do you get in the system?
how do we get in the system, and then how is it monitored to make sure that, like we say, we got some old projects on there that maybe need to come out that we're not gonna do, or how does all of that work? I guess that's what I'm trying to say, if you understand what I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Sure. Yeah, you got two project lists in front of you. One of them is a sewer project list, and the other one is a water project list. The designations, the water projects have a WX for their designator, and the sewer projects have an SX. The list that you have in front of you, those are currently in what they call the WRIS system, the Water Resource Information System, that is held in Franklin. That, the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority, I won't say they manage it, but they just kind of hold it.
Database kind of.
It's the database of projects that they use, and whenever funding comes up through the state or federal government, there are projects already there. They routinely look at these, the dollar amounts as much as anything. Within their database, they will periodically, they'll query their database and say, we have $500 million worth of water needs within the Commonwealth. Or we have $100 million worth of sewer projects within the Commonwealth. And then they will use that whenever they go to Washington DC, when they're vying for those federal dollars coming down the pipeline. So that's the nuts and bolts basis of where this starts, or is held at KA. Now, how they get into the WRIS system is through a project application process. So anytime the city wants to add a project to this list, it goes, project application is prepared and it's sent to the Pennyroyal Lad Water Management Council.
The what?
Pennyroyal Area Development District over in Mayfield.
That's the pad.
Pennyroyal, the purchase area.
No, purchase.
I was
gonna
saying,
say,
I was saying
Pennyroyal.
Pennyroyal, yeah, two pads. The Purchase Area Development District in Mayfield.
Yes, yes.
They have what they call the Water Management Council, is run out of that office over there. Every quarter, the Water Management Council meets to approve new projects and get them into this WRIS system. And that's what the Area Water Management Council has elected as their procedures.
What's in the first column, you see PUADD.
Purchase Area Development District.
What's PU is purchase?
Purchase, because Pennyroyal is
Thanks.
PE. Yeah,
Exactly. So to differentiate. I got you.
that's it.
Thanks.
So that's, so for all the member utilities here in the purchase area, they would go through that Water Management Council there in Mayfield. Now, a project can be added at any time as far as a project profile application. And then every quarter they meet to approve all the projects. So you can actually get a project in here. It just won't be eligible for funding until that Water Management Council meets every quarter, or it can be approved on a special case. The Water Management Council can basically petition the executor or the executive director, which is the judge over there, and he can approve the projects if you need something approved very quickly.
Let me ask you this. Any of the projects that are on record now
Mhm.
that have not been funded, and say funding does come available for them, but we've decided that we don't want to really do that project at this time.
Mhm.
Do you think that it would be to our best interest to go through the list and really look at it and see if there's anything on the list that we need to take out?
Yes. Historically, what we've seen is it's a negative if the state
turn it down.
offers you money and you turn it
You
down.
turn it down.
So-
So I'm with you. I see some projects in the far right column that are between 2002 and 2011. Have we completed some of these projects?
Right.
Or have we just abandoned them?
Right.
Tim,
Right.
You want us to look at that, or can you look at that and give us some feedback? Doesn't have to be tonight,
Right,
but I'd sure like to know that.
okay,
And I totally agree. Let's get them off here.
right,
There's a process, I assume, for that. You can withdraw projects.
It's very simple.
Good.
Tim is being the superintendent. He basically can send an email to
Nice.
the coordinator, James
Give-
Smith.
Yeah.
Purchase Area Development District, send him an email and say, I want to eliminate WX number
Second
211
column there.
57017.
Yeah, eliminate this
Complete that
project.
job, eliminate, it. Or it's no longer a priority. we
Right.
eliminate it.
I would like you to do that, and I'll be glad to do it with you, whatever, but it's somebody's been around here back as far as almost 2011. But to make sure we're on the same page, but I mean, I would like you to bring it back to the board
okay,
and just let us,
right.
and
I mean,
just- you don't have
Greg,
to explain
Just
everyone.
asking, I don't know how a lot of this stuff works. Would that be something that we could sit down together? Not really, not in a meeting, but as a workshop? And discuss?
Yes, but it's still a meeting. Yeah, you can call it anything you want to call it, but if there's a quorum of this group there, it's a public meeting.
Okay.
I mean, we put on the agenda, Dan, for the next meeting, if you want to, just to give Tim some time to think about them and do a little research.
Right.
And if you wanted, like I
I mean,
said,
I
if you
just,
want
you
to,
know,
As long
We
as
I
can-
don't
you're
want to get cut out of something because of, I mean, if there's projects in there that we need to get out, let's get
I'd
them
say let's
out.
dump
Let me
it.
let me ask you this, Greg,
Yes.
if we have, like, we've had two people in
Yeah, like
the
a subcommittee.
superintendent as a subcommittee to interview people or employees or whatever, is that not something that we
Yeah, you can
could do
that.
to work with him?
Sure. Yeah, as long as you don't have a quorum,
Right,
you can
Right.
have
Okay.
whatever kind of meetings, what have, and you have to be careful that you don't, okay, we're gonna meet with this half this time, we're gonna, and you can't defeat the open meetings by having
right, right.
having a bunch of little meetings.
Right,
instead of one big-
but
Right.
to help,
sure.
help
Tim
Tim
just
work his
prepare
way
a
through
list.
the list,
Yeah.
you know, if,
If you prepare
Right.
a list and just email it to everybody.
Couple
just
of
say,
them.
These are my thoughts.
He can. Let me ask you this, just for the world of reality.
Yeah.
If this group considers, for instance, pulling one of these things out, whether or not this is something we want to continue to do, does that discussion alone, I mean, does that even, is that on the radar of these grantors? Do they, are they even going to know we had that conversation? Whether it's public meeting or not?
All they're gonna know is it's on the list or it's not.
That's kind of what I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
you
I'm
get
I'm thinking
removed
they're
from the
not
list, it just
watching,
goes away.
they're not watching.
Right,
Yeah.
I don't think we will prejudice, if the fear is that we will prejudice ourselves by discussing in an open meeting that we're wondering whether this is a project that we still need to do. I don't think that's the case. And you
No,
don't
no,
either.
I think the only case on this would be if you had a resident or an entity within the Calvert service area that was very much pro one of the projects, and then they saw you removing it, they
Right.
may have a comment to say, hey, I really want that.
Well, they
that
might
on
want to
here
hear
because-
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
That would be the.
But I think if the fear is that you're going to mess up your ability to get the grant by having an open discussion of whether or not you need the grant, I
No.
don't think that's I don't think that's real.
right. Okay,
No, they look at the application, and then they also look at the application has a section on it about impacts, and how this will impact the environment, how it will impact the community, how it would impact the residents and the total service area. And so it's about a 10-page application. You fill out check boxes and fill in those.
I think that group would really actually appreciate the fact that they thought you'd taken a second look at it and was being serious about it, not just trying to grab it.
everything that came along.
Changes.
Right,
And that's another negative is, if they see these projects haven't been touched since 2011, they're gonna have to let that go off and say, well, that's not a priority for them.
Right.
Because they haven't even looked at or updated the budget.
Or they've done it on their own money.
From a management standpoint, Rivercrest doesn't actively manage these projects, but we're happy to help you anytime you request us to update budgets, update descriptions. We actually, with the last round, when we did the variable frequency drive, that project had a number already in the system, and we just revised it. We revised the description, we revised the budget, and we tailored it to the current project that's in there now. So,
Well, we might find one in there from 2011. We go, well, that's, you know, we kind of have a sense where we're going these days.
Right.
I really feel it about this, Tim, and I really appreciate it. You know we want to keep servicing our residents, but we sense there is, you know, there's business to be had out of the plants.
Right.
And so we've got to do both. And we might find one from back when,
Right.
2011, they go, wait a minute, that's going to help in that process. And then, yes, the numbers are probably wrong. You're going to have
we'll
to,
update.
you're going to have to.
So an
do better.
update would be logical in that situation, so.
I'm just saying, we're not just going to go through the cut.
Right.
If we see something that's going to be helpful, let's keep it and let's put it on a priority list and really get a realistic what the price is in case the grant money came along or whatever. Or we decide we want to, that it's a strategic and we want to go ahead and put it in the budget somehow.
Well, this might be a 2 or 3 month process where
Right.
you, 1 month you come in and say, this is what I'm looking at, then we look at. Do
Look
we
at the
need
different
this?
avenues.
Can we do without it?
Right.
And then finally make the decision, okay, we don't need this, or. But it's not something I think you'd want to just all in one meeting, say, hey.
No,
we're out.
Right.
no.
And once a year, KIA puts out what they call a call for projects. So around September, they'll start to call for projects. So between September and December, that is a period of time where anybody that has a priority project they want to submit to KIA for funding, they will prepare that list. And at that time, James Smith with the Purchase Area Development District, he'll go around and he'll send an email out, or he'll do a site visit, and he'll ask each of the utilities what their priority projects are. And traditionally, if you already have a project in the system, you just tell him, hey, projects 3, 4, 5, and 6 are our priorities. Make sure those are in that call for projects for this year. And they'll submit those 4 only. They won't submit the entire list. They'll just send those 4. That way, you're not getting muddled up with lesser priority projects, and you don't get those funded whenever you really want the money going to a higher quality project. Because once that money is earmarked for that project, you can't move it to another, because it's been selected based on a certain impact or a certain, you know, there could be a number of reasons why it was selected, but it won't let you reallocate.
So does this happen annually here? Is that something, Dan, you're part of, or our superintendent's been a part of, or what in the past, or is that something y'all do? What are you talking about here? Have we done this?
It's all news to me,
It's-
and I've been on the board a long time.
In the purchase area, it is very passively managed. In other systems, the water management coordinator goes around and does a physical visit and sits down with Tim and says, Tim, we're doing a couple of projects. I need your priorities for this list.
So this would come out of the pad then,
In
you're saying?
in the purchase area
Theoretically.
development district, there's an email. They don't do the site visits. They just send out an email.
Yeah,
And
it's
say,
very
hey, we
passive
got
in
the
that
call
sense.
for projects, send it to me. So like I said, it's more passive.
You know, Roger may have been doing this in the past, or,
Okay,
Roger did it, but it was like through email.
Yeah.
Everybody would get an email and say, hey, and it wouldn't be in September. A lot of times it would be November 15th. Hey, you got 2 weeks to submit your project. So there was a big scramble. And we would be getting phone calls from about 5 or 6 of our clients saying, hey, we gotta get these projects submitted. And we'd have a crash course in budgeting and putting together mapping.
because I think as an advisory board that this is our role, is to dig into this kind of stuff and get it laid out in front of the mayor or whomever to, this is what we want to do and when we want to do it.
And a lot of it starts with the capital plan. Before Roger
Yeah.
left, he updated the capital plan. So there's a list of projects,
Yes.
water and sewer in that capital plan.
yeah,
And
that's kind of what that was.
that kind of drives this.
Right.
Not to say it can't change, but that kind of the basis for something like this.
Yeah.
Where a lot
And
of
we've done
entities-
that. When we break up in those two groups.
Really, I keep going back over that issue with the water. I think that the high service thing, that lift station, that enlarging those pipes out there.
You know, it's priorities
They
are.
are coming, they're boiling to the top.
Well-
It means keeping your water tank full, that's a pretty serious issue. But I think Dan's got a good suggestion that we just do that, and that'll probably guide us in our capital project.
It will.
I can tell you how these organizations work. The more glad handing and more presence you have with those groups, the more money you get. Just the nature of human interaction. And, you know, if they can see, I think the greatest thing in grant writing that you've got to do to an evaluator, is they got to see you really thought this through. They think it's just jerked up, thrown together some way, but they can see something that's clearly delineated from how you thought through, like, we do get writing a grant. We want to talk about this process and let them know the process and steps we've taken to identify that. And the better that plan looks to that grant or that reviewer, the higher chance of funding you get on. Now, the pad's they got $1 million, they're gonna spread that love. They're not gonna take $1 million and do one project.
Right.
But, you know, for some of these other things that come up, the more we can show that we have thought through that process, the stronger argument you can make, including that you had engineering input and all 9 yards. Just can't take it for granted. They know that. You gotta tell them you've done it, you know.
Document.
You know?
All right, we'll get together with Tim and either in pairs or
I'll look over it.
let
And
Tim look over it
Go
and then we
through
can
it
get.
and I'll send a couple of you. I'll send all an email
Yeah, you can send everybody. an email.
and just highlight the list of what I'm looking at and ask you to look at it. And I mean,
Do you want
then-
to, what do you want to focus on first? Do you want to focus on what's the most important to you at this point? Or would you want to look at the old ones, what to get rid of? What's better use of your time?
I think we need to look at what's the most important.
Works for me.
And then, I mean, I think we'll see what's most important. It's not going to be, I mean, I think it'll break itself down.
Right.
I mean, if you put it in, if you break it down into the importance of the system and you prioritize it, it'll break itself down.
Gotcha.
I mean, you won't have to break it down. It'll break itself down.
I guess one of the questions about the old ones is, have we already done some of these? I see things on Colorado
Yep.
or,
And a lot of
DFA.
things on the list, and I don't know why they do not take them off, but they do. I mean,
Unless a specific written request is submitted to them, they will not.
even though the
Even if
project has
it's
been
funded and
completed.
complete, even if it's funded
So,
through the state.
if
and
you
it says
see some of
on there it's
those,
funded, they won't
please.
do it.
Right,
share that.
right,
Because it'll be as easy as an email. You know what
right,
I'm saying? Get rid of this project on
Right.
this list for us. We've got it done. We didn't need your money.
right.
You know, that kind of thing. So look for those two, but I like your thought though. Let's start with out of this, what's the most important? And finally, what's the big one we're missing? Is there one or two things you go, you know, these are great, but here's the one that solves what we see are the biggest issues. And we really aren't funding it.
Right.
So don't, in your free time, right? I understand. But I'm saying it's, look, we can get you some money to get to what you see is the most important things.
Okay,
Let's start working on it.
And don't forget, Tim, when you send an email to everybody, it's a public record.
okay,
And for everybody else, don't have a conversation on that email thread. Don't respond.
Okay.
Accept whatever Tim reports, but don't have a conversation in that thread.
Good point.
It's gotta be public
Chad, is there a
discussion.
limit on how many
Not my-
projects?
not my knowledge. No,
I just a question.
Yeah.
I mean, good question, very good question. I mean,
Yeah, and you work with other cities? You work with other,
cities, counties, yeah.
so are we got a huge list from Calvert City? We got
You
an
probably
average
got one
list?
of the larger lists. And
Yeah,
that's-
see, that
but
to
that's
me-
But I wouldn't say it's altogether a bad thing. I
Okay.
think a lot of these you'll see, from the dates going through here, I think a lot of them were here, if he was made aware of a need, he went ahead and put a project in
Yes,
just in case
so it's
funding
really,
came available. Hey, well, we didn't budget for this project, but now we've got this influx of dollars that we weren't anticipating. So now we can do a project that we weren't anticipating and
Right.
make everybody happy. So, sure. Not a bad, I've got some clients where I've reviewed their list with them last year and, well, every project on their water list was removed. And they don't have any projects anymore. Because they've already been completed.
right.
So I mean, there's probably on both ends of the spectrum.
For me, again, I think capacity building for our chemical plants is just one of the things we've got to make part of our goals. Because I think they seem to do a good job out there, and they're all trying to grow, and it's a US economy and things are good, and let's not fall behind. Let's make this a place that can service them if they need it, and let's make this thing as strong as we can. So that's kind of my attitude while servicing the citizens of Calvert City.
Well, and you benefit from the previous 5 to 8 years. There's been a lot of focus on the residential side in the Heights area, and all the water lines.
We
were
did
replaced
some
in the
good work.
Heights area. A lot of focus there. A lot
And
of-
your group did some good
building
work there. Did y'all do that work?
We did.
Yes, appreciate it.
Yeah, we did too.
I think it's been very much it's helped these guys,
It's helped.
their work.
It's feeding that tank and receiving from that tank.
Well, going out and reading
Got a little bit
meters,
more to do out to the east, fixing some of those areas that keep popping on you.
you've made it more efficient for reading meters, right, each month.
Yep.
So we appreciate it. No more backyards, and go to the weeds, fighting off dogs.
Well, like we talked about before, it's got its advantages, but it's got its disadvantages too.
Okay,
Not out there beating the bush every day or every month. You don't see a lot of things.
yes,
Yeah, you missed some of
First-
that. Yeah.
gotcha. May have to work that into the routine somehow.
All right.
We're going to.
Okay.
Well, if y'all don't have anything else for Chad, I appreciate your time and taking the time, and we'll be probably hollering at you some other time to work with us a little bit as we move through this process. So appreciate it.
Thank you for these.
Taking
Well, Chad, where are we at on bidding on this?
Okay, on the US 62 project.
Right.
We're waiting on the lawyer. I just got it, in all fairness, I got it about Friday.
You've
We've
got the
been
procurement
waiting on that attorney for months and months and
Like
months.
we didn't have to wait on
package.
that.
So as soon as I get the green light, we'll advertise.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try to review that contract in the next week or so.
Yeah.
I just gotta get a little time, because as long as it took you to draft it, it's gonna take me a little bit of time to read it.
Yeah, I think in your discussion, you covered my next topic, so project updates. So I think we're there. So on all that. So very, very good. Okay, very good.
Thank y'all very much.
Thanks,
All
Chad.
right, appreciate it, Chad. Next item on the agenda is, do you have to read before I make the motion in the second? Okay,
Would you like me to do that?
I'd like you to read it, please.
Okay. If you guys would like to entertain an executive session to discuss proposed or pending litigation. The exception is pursuant to KRS 61.810 subsection 1 subparagraph 3. And the purpose is to protect the negotiations and the security of pending of the items of pending litigation. So if you would like to go into executive session to discuss that for a moment, we will entertain a motion.
Need a motion to enter into executive
Motion to
session.
enter into executive session.
Okay, need a second? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Okay.
Hold on just a second.
Do we need to close the
Yeah,
door?
we'll close the doors.
Yeah, but I gotta get us on one.
That'd be good.
I believe if you leave it